So I wanted to make a video and explain to everybody why I don't take health insurance and why you may not want to work with a nutrition or functional medicine practitioner who does. So first of all, it's really, really important to recognize that insurance providers are beholden to the insurance company. While many practitioners who take insurance would love to be answering to you as their patient or their client, unfortunately, that's not how it works. So insurance companies will only accept certain types of testing, certain types of healing recommendations, certain types of medical or health recommendations based on that diagnosis and the kind of testing that they want to accept for that. Insurance companies are not interested in you fully healing to the point where you will not need to use that insurance company, a pharmaceutical prescription, or something within the mainstream healthcare system. And so it extremely limits most providers who take health insurance, which means you're very unlikely to find a really high quality functional medicine practitioner who accepts insurance and who uses functional medicine lab work. So the lab work that I use as a functional medicine practitioner is sometimes the same, but I'm using it in a different way, but in many cases different than what a licensed healthcare provider is using. And what I mean by that is, like, I run traditional blood work, but I look at it from a functional medicine lens. So I look for what's optimal, not what's diagnosable for disease. Another example is something like a stool test. The stool test that you'll typically have run from a doctor's office or a licensed healthcare practitioner's office is very limited. It's only going to look at things that are considered pathogenic, meaning disease causing, meaning like they'll test you for something like some strains of E. coli, salmonella, giardia, right? But they're not going to get into the minutia of keystone or beneficial bacteria. They're not going to get into the exhaustive list of parasites. They're not going to get into the exhaustive list of fungal growth. They're not going to get into the exhaustive list of other opportunistic bacteria, meaning bacteria that causes problems, but they're not seeing as pathogenic. So you're going to get a very different standard of care and support if you're seeing somebody who's a functional medicine practitioner versus just mainstream Western medicine. That's kind of the first piece to know. And it's very unlikely that there's overlap, right? There are a very small number of functional medicine doctors who will take insurance, but most do not. And a lot of functional medicine doctors are doing pill for an ill. So they're just swapping out, instead of a prescription medication, they're using a supplement in that place, and they're not taking you through the important changes to your lifestyle and your day-to-day habits that are what are going to sustain you ultimately without relying forever and ever on a bajillion supplements. So it's a very different path, and you're going to get very different results in most cases, right? So you need to be aware of that, because I hear from time to time from people who are interested in working with me and then say, oh, I actually talked to my doctor and I'm going to see a dietitian they recommend. And it's like, that's sure, great. However, in my experience, many people who go that route, if you have something like a major gut issue, if you have something like a major hormone imbalance, you have intense skin breakouts, you have really terrible periods, you have a lot of trouble losing weight, and you're not just interested in going on a medication, losing weight, and regaining it, which is what often happens in that situation, you're going to want to work with a practitioner who's outside of the traditional insurance model. So that is just the reality. And I will tell you, I put my money where my mouth is. I'm in this career because I have worked with other practitioners like me, and some have helped and some have not, just like any other pathway. However, the people who have helped me the most have been people who I've paid for out of pocket. And I was maximized my insurance kind of girly. I have a master's in public health. I wanted to believe the healthcare system was there to support me if I knew how to work it. It's really difficult to heal within that system. So that's something you need to really know about. There's a difference between a functional medicine practitioner like me and, for example, a registered dietitian or a doctor, right? So for me, first of all, I'm not licensed, and I've looked down licensing pathways and chosen not to do it because I don't want to be beholden to organizations or companies about what they think is right. I want to collaborate with my clients and see what you need, right? And to support you with those needs. It's a very different orientation. And I use functional medicine, which means I look at how all the systems in your body work, all the organs in your body work. And I also use holistic nutrition and holistic healing, which means I look at how does everything in your life impact your health? How does your mental well-being? How does how you sleep? How does where you live? How do your support systems impact your well-being? I look at how all that comes together. It's really, really different. And so if you're looking for that type of care, hi there, happy Tuesday. If you're looking for that type of care and support, you're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, you're looking for a holistic practitioner, you are not looking for somebody licensed who goes through a traditional insurance model. That's not going to give you the care you're looking for then. If you're looking for somebody who is just gonna I don't even know. It's really hard for me, honestly, because even last week I had a conversation with somebody who worked with a registered dietitian who put them on a 1,200 to 1,300 calorie diet as somebody who has an eating disorder, who wants to lose weight, who has a long history of body image issues. Like, that is a huge no-no for so many reasons. First of all, there's very few grown adult women who can thrive on 1,200 to 1,300 calories, and the ones who can are very short, very short. That's the first thing. So there's no world in which this woman should be on that low of calories. Second of all, if somebody has a history of an eating disorder, a binge eating disorder, and is put on a diet of calories that low, they are very likely to have more binging episodes. They may have some initial success in losing weight, but they're going to have binging episodes, and they're going to further damage their metabolic function and their hormones. And that's the third piece. That is a disaster for your hormones. And that's a actually, I'm going to say it. That's a fucking registered dietitian. Like, I can't. That's somebody who's covered by insurance. Is that the standard of care you're looking for? Because that's not what I'm looking for. And that's not something I want any of my clients to come in contact with. So I wanted to come on and just have a more exhaustive recording of this. And, I'm always happy to answer questions when people are genuinely curious about how all this works. I will tell you, in my state of Colorado, registered dietitians, their organization, it used to be called the American Dietetic Association. Now it has a new name, but it's the same organization. They're funded by companies like Coca-Cola and General Mills and all this. And I know that because when I researched becoming a registered dietitian years ago, I decided not to because of that, because I understood that conflict of interest and because the advice that they gave in their textbooks was terrible advice. And so that is a pathway I actually chose not to go down. But in Colorado right now, we're actually fighting some legislation they're trying to push through so that they can make rules about who can share about health information. That's how much a threat people like I am are to this medical system and this health insurance system. We're a threat because we actually help people heal. We put the power back in your hands. We teach you how to understand your body. We teach you how to actually eat for your health. We teach you how to do things that are outside of pharmaceutical companies and hospitals, and it doesn't make them money. And so we're a threat. And so they're literally coming after us through the legislation. So this is complicated and complex, and I know we all want to be able to use our insurance as much as possible, but the reality is that if you are looking for deep healing, if you are looking for functional medicine support or holistic support, it is very, very unlikely, nearly impossible to get that using your insurance. And that's where things like my courses come in. If you're somebody who's on a really tight budget, my courses are such an excellent resource. The Balance Hormone Blueprint has changed lives. I get messages periodically from women who have gone through that course. It's my signature course. It's incredible. I've never seen a course like this that has different tracks depending on your type of hormone imbalance that you don't have to know coming in. You take an assessment that helps you at the beginning figure out what track do I need to follow. Again, I've never seen a course like this because anybody who teaches people how to make courses says keep it simple, and I kept it complex because I wanted to mimic one-on-one work for those who needed it from a budget standpoint. That course is freaking incredible, and you can check it out at marissafay.com/course. It is there for you. I'm going to be talking more about the course actually because I'm just feeling like people need to hear more about it again. But there are budget-friendly ways to do this type of healing work and to start the process without necessarily working one-on-one with me or someone like me. But you need to just know that it's not going to be through this Western medicine, use your healthcare, use your insurance model. It is not going to be there. And so I say that with a lot of love because I was somebody who wanted to believe that that model could help me and support me, and it didn't. It failed me over and over again. So you have to know what you're asking for. If you're saying, I want to only be able to use my insurance to work with a nutrition professional, to work with somebody on holistic healing, it's not gonna happen. I wish it would for you. In some ways, I wish the system would change, and in some ways I don't, because I really do appreciate my freedom and my ability just as a consumer to work with somebody who I want to work with, who I feel can help me outside of that model, because it's extremely, extremely limiting. So that's my 2 cents. I just wanted to record this. I'm actually going to be saving this recording for anybody who's jumped in late. And if you have questions about functional medicine, about holistic nutrition, about insurance versus not insurance, you can feel free to comment.